Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Commercial Minds. My name is Teny Kuti, and I'm joined as ever by my lovely co-host.
Modou, Keita in the house. I don't know why I introduced myself like that. But hey, welcome back, guys. Welcome back. We are we are so excited to have you guys, in again listening. It's been a long time because the unspoken the unspoken tragedy that's happening. But yeah, how you been, Tenny?
It won't it won't be unspoken for long because literally every news story we have today
The
is
C
based
word.
around that unspoken word. Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's just call it the C word.
The C word. I think we might actually have to stop referring to that word. I mean, we probably shouldn't, but apparently YouTube is actually sort
Mm.
of like demonetizing and like sort of hiding any use of that word. So it would like hurt our growth
Oh,
if we actually
really?
talk about it. But yeah, but naturally we
Wow.
have to because it's a whole business.
That's
So
why I mentioned it, that's exactly why I mentioned it. I just knew something like
yeah,
that would be happening.
we'll just hold off until we have to say it in the
Yeah.
first story.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. But
But
yeah,
yeah, for those of us who this may be your first time, Commercial Minds is our fortnightly podcast where we come to you with the biggest stories in the commercial world and we break it down, we discuss the impacts so you can increase your commercial awareness. And you can catch us on YouTube where you're probably listening to us right now simply by searching Commercial Minds.
yeah, we are now the top search result as well, so that should be right there at the top of the page. So no digging around.
Yeah, exactly. We are the top commercial minds on YouTube, I think.
You're
But
really
of
you're really hoping to throw that one in.
course, of course.
Oh my goodness. No, that's good though. It's been a long time. It's really been a long time. I missed you, bro, man. I've missed you.
Yeah, I miss you too. I miss discussing all the commercial news with you. It's we've
Yeah.
had sort of issues with like, how to do this remotely because we are doing this episode remotely.
Hmm.
Um and then also I had like a ton of construction outside my house and because I can't leave my house, it means that I can't really record. And it was going on for like months.
Mm,
It was crazy. But luckily there should be no drills in the background today.
yeah.
I might just edit a tiny drill in there. Just in that pause.
Tell with the jokes. Sounds
Of
good, man.
course. I miss this.
All right
But
then.
yeah. Shall we jump in to the first story? Yeah.
Yep.
So, the first story comes from the Financial Times. The African economy is set to be particularly hard struck by the coronavirus pandemic, as the International Monetary Fund has projected economic activity in the region to contract by 3.2%, a significant sum for such a developing region, and this would be the hardest the region has been hit since the 1970s. In an interview, Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the IMF, claimed that the continent would require tens of billions of dollars in support in order to offset any long lasting consequences. This help is especially required by the economies of Ghana, Ethiopia, and Rwanda, who were amongst the world's fastest developing economies prior to the coronavirus pandemic, and whose momentum has now been drastically interrupted. She also noted an expected 5.4% drop in incomes per capita, which could result in millions of people in the region falling into extreme poverty. The organization is currently in the process of increasing the annual disbursements to Africa to $16 billion. So yeah, that's the story. The African economy is not particularly doing very well
Mm.
with the coronavirus pandemic. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think the impacts will be?
I mean, yeah, it's really tragic. I mean, we kind of saw it coming because when this rolled out and the infamous C word when it started, taking over, and we saw the damage it was really doing to, um the Western countries and big companies like Disney having to shut down its theme parks. And I think they just released a report not long ago just saying how much they've actually lost because of all of this. Yeah, we knew that, the regions that were up and coming would be devastatingly, affected by it. So Africa happens to be one of those. And it's a shame countries like Ghana, especially, I've been, hearing about for a long time how they were coming up. And
Mm.
yeah, it's a shame that, this pandemic has slowed that down and arguably put them, I don't know if you can say it's put them back years, but it's definitely done some significant damage. And there's also, in Latin America, it has also been really devastatingly hit by this. So it seems to be that the developing economies around the world have been probably would be the most devastated by it, because you have this hope of growing and all of a sudden it's kind of snatched before your eyes. um
Yeah, yeah. I think because a lot of the developing economies obviously aren't, they don't have established sort of ways to deal with this. So
mm,
when they're reliant on things such as, I think Africa's main sort of export is oil and gas.
mm-hmm,
And when you have the Saudi Russian price war that completely plummets the price of oil,
mm-hmm.
that they're naturally going to be really hurt by just the inability to actually export and get money into the country.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think it's also worth noting that yeah, with the Saudi Russia price war, that's all been sort of fixed now. They've come to a deal. We talked about that, I think, last on episode 6.
Many moons ago.
Yeah, exactly. Many, many moons ago. But I think the deal was struck in around the middle of April. But naturally, they're
Mm,
still going to feel the effects of this sort of surplus of oil that still exists in the world.
yeah,
Yeah, and also we should talk about the 5.4% drop in incomes per capita, which could result in millions falling into extreme poverty.
yeah.
Because naturally, all across the world, people are losing jobs. People are being furloughed or just straight up being, let go from their organizations.
Mm-hmm,
And
yeah,
when you have things like that happen in a country in developing economies such as Ghana, Ethiopia, Rwanda, in Africa, it
mm-hmm,
could be a really dangerous situation for these people who may not have, the financial security
yeah. It definitely,
that people in Western countries may have.
definitely, you're right. I mean, and also when you look at it on a macro level as well, these countries they were developing, and yeah, now all of a sudden you're set back. That it sets you back in more than one way, because now you're gonna have to go take out loans again and rely on more developed countries in terms of economics. But in terms of
Economics.
economics, yeah, and that's gonna set you back because now you're in debt as well, and a country borrowing money from another country is no small money. So that's disappointing to think about. But
Yeah. So the managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva,
mm,
she's essentially called on private sector lenders like banks to join a debt moratorium for the region. So essentially, it would essentially pause or whatever deal they could work out. Really, just sort of slow down the amount of debt that the region currently has to pay back.
mm,
So it would enable these economies to actually stay afloat. And then it sort of works out good for both parties because if they stay afloat, then they're more likely to be able to pay back the debt later than if they, sink and then they can't pay back the debt at all.
yeah,
And it's essentially the job of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, to essentially establish financial stability in regions and countries across the world. For those of you who don't know, the IMF is an organization of 189 countries who basically work together to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, and promote high employment and sustainable economic growth and reduce poverty around the world. That's actually from their website. That's
Mm,
sort of their mission statement that's on their website. And yeah, as they've done here, they can work to lend money to countries who will then be able to negotiate return payments. And one thing about the IMF that's probably different or maybe even better than borrowing money from private sector lenders is that you are able to sort of negotiate return payments in a way that you can't with, say, getting a loan from a bank or something like that.
yeah, that's true. I mean, in your opinion, how do you see this? How do you see the world recovering in terms of the developing world? So these developing countries that we are mentioning right now, so the African countries mainly and the Latin American countries, how do you see them recovering from this pandemic?
Well, they are amongst the hardest hit, so it's probably gonna take these countries the longest to sort of bounce back.
Mm.
I think you put me on the spot here.
Yeah.
Um,
No, but I definitely agree with you. Yeah, they are going to be the hardest hit, and I think there has to be some element of them working with the bigger economies, like you know, your Americas and the UK, but also the IMF is also there lending them money, but it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long process because we're not seeing the worst.
yeah, exactly. I think again, like once we sort of start to see oil prices come back to normal, we have that sort of healthy competition and that healthy import export of oil. I think that will definitely help the region because that's one of their main exports. Apparently, Africa also exports metals and minerals as well. Obviously, people aren't really buying things like that. So again, it's sort of like once we can sort of start to improve international sort of trade, and
Mm,
when we can get sort of imports and exports in and out, I think that's going to be really key to having these regions sort of reestablished. And once we can get sort of the economies back up and running, it theoretically we should be able to get the companies employing people on an individual level, then sort of increasing the income per capita and sort of pulling people out of poverty. But
mm.
as we know, that's easier said than done, I guess.
Definitely, definitely.
Do you have anything else to say on Africa's struggles?
No, not really. I think we've said most of it. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how these countries rebound because they will rebound. You know, it's almost inevitable, you could say. They have the natural resources. Um, they have the connections with the top economies and the countries or the corporations around the world to be able to develop their infrastructure and better their employment. So they definitely have the foundation. So they will rebound. It's just for the time being, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Hmm.
So we'll move on to our second story, which is seems to be like a weekly topic on our show. Airbus and the plane industry. We've already established this has been in previous episodes. This has been one of the hardest hit industries with the coronavirus pandemic because naturally people can't actually go anywhere.
Hmm.
So, although I actually know a few people who've like gone on holiday in the past week or so. So you
Yeah,
know,
I've
as long as they're social
even
distancing when they get back, I guess.
yeah, there's some countries where you have to self-isolate. I think Spain's been added to that recently. But
Yeah,
even I was planning on going on holiday, but these places, it's just a huge risk. Well, not a huge risk, but it's just the uncertainty is what really makes it difficult. So because you might
yeah,
be in a country, I know most people that were in Spain, and then they heard, oh, when you go when you come back, by the way, you're gonna have to quarantine yourself for 14 days or something. It's just
yeah. Not ideal.
yeah, it's not ideal. So yeah, but so the travel sector, what's happening with Airbus?
Okay, so again comes from the Financial Times. Europe's leading plane manufacturer Airbus has cut 15,000 jobs as coronavirus continues to put pressure on the travel industry. This is a 17% cut in their total commercial aerospace workforce, and 1,700 jobs will be lost in the UK. However, this move has been criticized by the French government and French unions as excessive, given that weeks prior to this move, the French government unveiled a 15 billion rescue package for the aviation industry. The company has said that it would begin consultations with unions on the job cuts, but this could lead to tension between the company and the unions. Boeing has also announced cuts of 10% of its 160,000 strong workforce.
Wow.
So yeah, Airbus continues to sort of try to cut expenditure to increase profits and essentially stay afloat.
Hmm.
But yeah, what do you think about the move being criticized by the French government?
Um, I think I can definitely see where the French government is coming from. Yeah, you're giving them this rescue package, um, partly because you don't want to see them, yeah, making people redundant en masse. So I can definitely understand the criticism, but I don't know. I think they might still be making the cuts because even with the rescue package, because that's a 15 billion for the entire aviation industry, and the aviation industry is not small. It's not like it's just Airbus and Boeing. There are many other competitors, and you know that has to be divvied up in a lot of ways. But it is sad to see that these cuts are being made, and we're just coming out on the side where we're starting to see these cuts. Even football clubs have been releasing a lot of. I have to relate it back to football. I'm a huge football fan, guys, but um
Please go ahead.
but yeah, even these football clubs they've been cutting staff, and players are saying, wait, hold on a minute, we took wage cuts because you said you weren't gonna fire these people if we did. And it just goes to show, for me anyway, my interpretation of all of this is, it just goes to show the extent of the damage that's been done, because the government has given this rescue package, and still there's cuts being made. That might just be an indication of how how deep the cut of the C word has been, and how they need to um as much as I hate to say it, be ruthless to survive, and keep on going as a business. It's very disheartening to see. But yeah, that's my interpretation of it all. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I mostly agree. I think that one potential aspect that we could see that I haven't really seen discussed is competition, you know?
Mm,
If um if Airbus is particularly taking it harder than Boeing, could Boeing sort of infringe on Airbus's market share and sort of become like more well known and sort of yeah, take their orders essentially?
mm-hmm,
Um, I think we could potentially see winners and losers in this coronavirus pandemic in terms of companies sort of not really being able to withstand the losses and other companies better being able to withstand any potential losses that they'll take.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, would you say it? I would argue that the likes of Airbus and Boeing, being the two biggest um plane manufacturers out there, should be fine. All in all, should be fine. I don't know whether you would agree with that.
Should be fine. Yeah, like I don't foresee sort of a market leader like Airbus sort of disappearing in the
Mm,
next few years.
yeah.
But I think that it's sort of relevant to sort of discuss, Boeing only had to cut 10% of its workforce, whereas Airbus cut 17%,
Yeah,
Does
that's
that
true.
sort of signify that Airbus is doing worse than
Mm,
Boeing? Could that mean that could could sort of become sort of the market leader in that sense,
that's
or
true.
could it
That's
be
true.
that Airbus has made such a significant cut to ensure that they're still able to
Yeah.
sort of meet any potential orders,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Boeing is sort of trying to retain more of its staff, but that could hurt them more in the long run.
Yeah. Definitely, very interesting viewpoint that you brought up there. And it's also interesting because you consider Boeing before this C word happened. They were under the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. I mean, with this flight that crashed and then I think an entire fleet of 747s, I think I
Had to be
want
recalled, right?
yeah, they had to be, yeah, recalled and everything, their manufacturing went down. So you would think if anyone should be making a 17% cut, it would be them. But as you rightly said, perhaps they are trying to retain more of their workforce in hopes of rebounding quicker. But in the long run, that might hurt them. So that is quite interesting to think about.
Yeah, yeah. Airbus's chief executive, Guillaume Faury, has warned that the industry may not fully recover until 2023 or potentially 2025.
Wow.
So I think that sort of adds context to Airbus's decision to cut, a whole 17% and 1,700 jobs in the UK itself, in
Mm,
that, this is going to take a while,
mm-hmm,
and we're going to sort of companies are going to sort of be struggling, as he said, until 2025.
mm-hmm.
And the losses that Airbus carried out recently is 50% higher than the losses occurred in 2007, because of the credit crunch.
Wow. Yeah, it just shows the impact. I mean, the only other thing I was thinking about is what do you think the impact is going to be on a consumer level for us everyday travelers? What's going to be the impact of this?
The impact on us as sort of everyday sort of travelers and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, for the coming years until 2023 or 2025.
We could see. I mean, we're seeing it now that travel is sort of dirt cheap,
Mm,
because essentially they want to encourage people to get on these planes and go places.
mm-hmm,
So we could see really sort of cheap travel, until the industry really recovers, so that these companies are getting some income. Some income is better than no income.
mm-hmm, yeah,
So I think you're far more likely to encourage people, for the Christmas holidays or whatever, to go to Spain for 200 quid than
mm-hmm,
you are for the usual 600 or whatever.
yeah, definitely.
I think people are like, okay, if I need to self quarantine when I get back, that's fine. But if I can, sort of get away and relax and take off this coronavirus stress for a week or so, with a really cheap plane ticket, then why not?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean,
That's true.
we saw the same thing with probably should have discussed this earlier, but Africa's tourism industry also is struggling, and we're seeing them sort of drop prices, and yeah, it's all just encouraging people to travel where they can, really.
Yeah, everything's going to be, it looks like everything's going to be cheap for the time being until they get into a better position to kind of, yeah, shoot the prices up. Do you think once the prices do come up, they're going to go up a lot? Or do you think it's just going to be normal?
I mean, I think once the industry sort of really recovers, you're gonna have sort of competition take over again, and you're gonna have, okay, well, you can take this airline and it's 200 quid to go here, but with us it's 150. So I felt
Mm,
like, because you have to sort of consider the sort of antitrust things, like they can't all collaborate and say, hey, we're not gonna let anyone go over here for less than 200 quid, because that's illegal.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think we are going to sort of see competition sort of take over. And again, I really think we could see winners and losers in the whole pandemic, and we could see some people come out on top and who are better able to sort of weather the storm, and some people may not. Some companies, I should say, may not really survive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I think we're also seeing this on a sort of a domestic level, in the UK, with the government's Eat Out to Help Out scheme.
Oh,
I think that's what it's called.
yeah, eat out to help out. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Where if you're going to, say, I don't know, McDonald's or whatever, it's like 50% off.
mm,
I think it's the entire menu, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you taken advantage of this yet, or?
No, I haven't. I haven't yet. I mean, I will do. I will do. I will do. But not yet. Maybe. Do you think that do you see that making? things a lot better though, or do you kind of just think it's kind of just putting bandage on the wounds, trying to stop the bleeding, or slow the bleeding rather, not stop it, but slow it.
It's a little bit of both, right?
Mm,
I mean, because when you sort of encourage people to sort of go out, not only are they becoming more comfortable with leaving the house and they're
mm,
more likely to go and spend money and that sort of thing,
yeah,
but also it's going to so it's got that long term sort of gain of people becoming more confident. It's also got the short term gain of these companies getting some money rather than no money,
mm,
and again, sort of increasing the confidence to go out really.
yeah, you're right, you're right.
Because I think that's sort of going to be it's sort of an unspoken issue that these companies are going to have to face is people sort of just being genuinely like scared to leave their houses.
That's true. That's true.
So you have to sort of uh, appeal to them and like encourage them in a way where I think with this Eat Out to Help Out scheme in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
it's literally like you have to eat in the restaurant. Like you can't do the drive-through or the takeaway. It has to actually you have to sit in the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It will help on both grounds to um help people get more acquainted to normal life again, and traveling and seeing, going out to places to eat. So yeah, it is a good initiative. I just see it more of a slowing down the bleeding rather than actually doing, because like you said, at the end of the day, any money is better than no money. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. There's also the criticisms that like are these sort of measures coming in too early?
Too early in terms of what? In case there's a second outbreak, or
Yeah, because we're hearing from somewhat reliable sources that there might be a second outbreak. I
yeah, they
think
said winter,
the
I think.
the World Health Organization said that like it's not even going to be a second outbreak; it's just one big outbreak until winter. So,
Wow.
I mean, yeah,
Ah,
strange times indeed.
that dastardly C word.
I think you can just say the. I think you just say the name at this point.
Nah, I'm not even gonna give it the luxury of identifying it.
Fair enough, Modou. Fair enough. So now we can move on to the third story, which comes from Financial Regulation Matters. So, imposing regulations from the Bank of England may cause banks to leave the UK. The Prudential Regulation Authority, which is a regulation arm of the Bank of England, has put pressure on various banks within the UK to stop paying out dividends during the coronavirus pandemic. So we
Mm,
have Lloyd's, RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, Barclays, HSBC, and Santander have all said that they would not that they would not pay out their dividends for 2019 and refrain from putting money aside for investor payouts. Now, this gives the banks extra cash, which would allow them to better serve the needs of customers and businesses, many of which will be struggling and rely on loans from banks. In a recent statement, HSBC said that it regretted the impact this cancellation will have on our shareholders, including our retail shareholders in Hong Kong, the UK, and elsewhere. And indeed, the move has resulted in their shares falling by 10% and losing nearly £8 billion from its valuation of HSBC. Many banks value their ability to operate the way they see fit. However, if they feel like too much regulatory pressure is being exerted on them, they may actually leave the country and go to set up their sort of
operations
head
elsewhere.
office and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is interesting to think about. And also, yeah, so they're telling these banks, yeah, don't pay out any dividends to your investors. Um, it will be interesting as we are kind of, I know earlier you mentioned how it's, one big outbreak, but as we are kind of coming out of this period, will that change to, the bigger banks saying, oh, but it's cool, we can afford to pay out our investors now, and then that means the smaller banks will still be imposed with this
I don't think
regulation.
so. Just in the sense that, like, I think the motivation behind the Prudential Regulation Authority telling them not to pay out dividends is the fact that, hey, you have this money, your customers need it more than your investors do.
Investors. Hmm.
Sort of like, hey, people, they need access to their loans, they need access to sort of overdrafts,
Hmm.
whereas your investors sort of don't. So I think that's sort of what the motivation behind it is.
Yeah.
And so until we have sort of a stronger economy where people are back into work and they're not relying so much on, loans and overdrafts, I think that it's sort of gonna be in this state where it's like, hey, yeah, you have this money, give it to the customers because they are going to need it more.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, as an investor, would you be disgruntled by this news?
It depends, like, whether you want to think about, like, sort of, at the risk of sounding a bit cheesy, like the greater good, or you want to think about, yourself, that you have, like, you've invested this money into a bank, so
Hmm.
you want to get your dividends, you want to get your payouts at the end of the quarter
Yeah.
and the end of the financial year. So it's yeah, no, I think it's going to be weird to sort of see. Well, we've seen the reaction from this already, that their shares have fallen by 10%, and people are pulling out knowing that, hey, if I'm not going to get any payouts for the next, what, 2 3 years, I don't think it'll be that long, but the banks will eventually reach a point where it's been like, hey, our investors haven't had their dividends in like 3 years, we need to pay them, type of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think that yeah, the longer it goes, the more they're going to pay out, and the more the banks are going to sort of feel the stress of these people pulling out. So they're going to end up eventually having to pay them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Because you don't want to lose your investors at the end of the day. Especially considering that you are going to need them after this, the impacts of this really kicks in. Um,
Yeah,
you will need that investor money. But yeah.
but then at the same time, we have these banks that potentially may even want to leave the UK to sort of not have this sort of quote unquote demand put on them. Because they're in the UK, they kind of are encouraged to listen to the Prudential Regulation Authority, which means that they're not paying dividends, which then means that their shares are falling. However, if they move to a different country where they're not, where they are able to pay out dividends, then their shares will rise. So it's sort of like it's a catch 22, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You have to think, I think in terms of the long term, it's leaving the UK doesn't make sense because the UK is the better market, one of the best markets out there, when it comes to, banking. So it depends if you really want to survive, like you really want to thrive in the short term, or whether you're just willing to hold out for the long term and just, yeah, stick it out to the end.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen sort of in the next few months, because the banks I listed off, Lloyds, RBS, Barclays, HSBC, and Santander,
Mm,
all agreed to not pay out the dividends for 2019. However, when the dividends for 2020 roll around, I'm sort of interested to see how that's going to play out and whether we are going to have sort of banks threaten to leave. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
yeah, I don't think they will because this is 2020 is when we're actually seeing the brunt of the damage. That's been done by this virus. So I don't see it being any different in terms of the regulators' standpoint. And I think they're just going to say, yeah, just hold out for 2020 also. But we can be surprised. You never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to sort of comment on about this issue with the banks and the Prudential Regulation Authority?
No, that's about it. So the Prudential, well, yeah, what is the Prudential Regulation Authority actually? Are they strictly bank regulation?
I believe so. So it's essentially, yeah, it's the regulation arm of the Bank of England. Sort of, they regulate sort of the way the banks sort of act and behave and conduct themselves. So yeah, they put pressure on the banks, but I don't think they could literally say, "Hey, you cannot pay dividends out." I think it's more like a sort of just putting pressure on them, and less of outright saying you can't do this. But
Oh,
yeah, that's it for our main stories
yeah.
for the last few weeks. Now we're gonna go into the bench. aptly named because these are stories that we sort of found that were interesting that we want to talk about, but they either have happened like in our little hiatus that we had since between this episode and episode 6, or they were just stories that didn't particularly make the cut.
Yeah.
So, you ready to jump into it?
Yep, I'm ready. Let's go.
No, wait. Are you ready to pull these stories off the bench?
All right, let's go.
Wait, no. Are they going on the bench? I don't know. It's weird. You named this section, so
All right, so now you're just gonna pass the buck to me.
yeah, I'm gonna pass the ball to you on the bench because now you're in the game, and you better start scoring them hoops, bro.
Lord, it's funny you say that because thingy, I'm gonna be playing basketball as my exercise later on today. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
hmm
You gonna be wearing masks? You gonna be social distancing?
Yeah, I should it should be just me and my friends. So yeah,
Okay.
should be cool unless 20 other people show up and then it would be a problem.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're playing it at like a public park, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a public like a cage. You know the ones I'm on about, like the
Yeah.
fenced off
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
How busy are those looking right now? Like, are you like going there and having to wait for like another group of people to finish, or is it just like you just walk on, it's pretty empty?
I would say it's definitely not you have to wait for anyone, but it's not empty exactly. So it's probably in the middle. So you may have like at peak you might have like 8 people on the court, on the entire
Right,
court,
right.
not just one half, but on the entire court you might have like 8 people there.
Yeah.
Um Yeah, so that's like at its peak because people, most people play basketball for like an hour and then move on. So it's not exactly too busy or to present any health risks, but yeah.
Okay, okay, that's interesting.
hmm
Because when I go on my runs, I have this park that's near me. It's kind of big. It's like got like a sort of playground. And it's got like a football slash basketball court. And it's got like tennis courts as well.
Oh wow,
And
nice.
yeah, and it seems to be pretty empty.
Yeah.
Like I see sort of like parents taking their like young kids out to like the sort of the playground area. But as far as like the basketball
hmm
courts and tennis courts, those are pretty empty usually.
Yeah, it is empty because people are still very cautious about it. It's like with the gyms as well. People are still cautious. I've heard a couple people saying they're going to, hold off for a bit and kind of ease back into it. So I'm guessing that's people's attitude when it comes to these outside spaces as well. You have to be cautious, and even if you go just like keep it to an hour. So at the start of lockdown, that was the regulation as well. They said an hour of outdoor exercise. So it seems like that's what most people, from what I'm seeing anyway, that's what people are sticking to.
You've been to the gym, right? How busy was that?
I actually haven't gone back to the gym yet because
Oh,
yeah, I haven't gone back because again, I'm thinking it's going to. I'm seeing that it's quite packed, so I think it's better off to hold off. And to be honest, I've kind of gotten used to the COVID. Oh dear, I said the name.
you didn't
Um,
say the 19. It's okay. I think we're okay.
but yeah, I've gotten used to the routine that I have developed during this time. Just maybe going for a 20-minute walk or a jog in the morning and then doing basketball in the late afternoon. I've gotten used to that
Yeah.
and it's been kind of yielding results. So I'm just gonna stick with that for a bit until we get back to normal life. What about yourself though? What have you been doing? We're digressing a lot. But
Yeah, well,
yeah.
this is what the bench is for. We talk
Yeah.
about,
hmm
okay, we should probably get back to the commercial
No, no,
stuff,
no. You
but
say
this is
yeah.
tangentially related because, yeah, you talked about people, sort of the gyms being packed, which is surprising to me because I thought that they would be a bit empty,
No, I think
which
the
is
real gym goers have all like jumped back in because they've missed it. They've missed it so much.
mm,
So yeah, and it's not like I wouldn't consider myself a real gym goer, but it's just yeah, you have to think because gym is a very high risk place. People are sweating everywhere, and
exactly, yeah.
you're touching all the barbells and the equipment. So it's a high risk. area.
I think if I hadn't got a refund for my gym membership and it had just been like extended, like I think it has for a lot of other gyms,
Mm.
I probably would have gone back, but I would have gone back like either early in the morning, like right after it's been cleaned,
Yeah.
or late at night, so I'm not around too many people.
Yeah. Those are two excellent times to go. Actually, you're right.
Yeah, because that's what I sort of usually do. I'm usually like a sort of early in the morning or like after the sort of after work rush, or like
Hmm.
7, 8ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. The cinemas as well. Because I have a Odeon Limitless card,
Mm.
and I actually didn't get told, but I think some of the cinemas are back open.
Really?
Yeah, because out of curiosity, I just opened the app yesterday, and I saw like quite a few random films, like nothing recent. I think there were like a few films that were like out in like March, like just before everything closed up. But it's like the old Harry Potter films and things
All
like
right.
that. You know?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have no idea like how filled those theaters are. I don't think I'd be perfectly comfortable sitting in
Yeah.
the theater right now.
Yeah, literally. And but I do think that it would be manageable with cinemas. You just limit the amount of tickets you sell. You tell them sit 2 meters apart. And I can see that being doable, to be honest. I can see them being able to do that.
Yeah, like I think practically it would probably be safe, but it's just sort of the mental
Mm.
thing of like, you
Yeah.
don't really want to, like, you have to wear the mask, and it's a whole thing,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Plus, I
Definitely
don't.
agree with you there. Yeah.
Am I really gonna watch the old Harry Potter films again?
When you can just stream it at home.
No, I have all of them on DVD, bro, Blu-ray.
Really? So you're a big Harry Potter fan then?
I was when it came out. I haven't watched them. I watched them recently, actually, but
Nice.
yeah, no, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a super big Harry Potter fan.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of did want to go watch Black Panther because that's back in Odeon.
Black Panther.
Yeah, weird, right? A 2018 film.
Wow. Yeah, they're really pulling out all the stops now.
Yeah, they just really want people to go back to the theater, I
Yeah.
guess. Buy that popcorn.
Mm. When do you
But
think
anyway,
when oh okay, one last question before we go back to focused discussion. When do
go
you
ahead.
think the new movies will be rolled out? Because I know the likes of James Bond were delayed until end of this year, December.
I mean, that is literally completely dependent on the cinemas.
Yeah.
So we recently found out that one of Disney's big, like, how they've been remaking all the sort of classic animated films.
Yeah.
Mulan, or Mulan, I'm not sure how you say it, was supposed to come out in like March,
Mm.
but now they've sort of given up and they're just saying, hey, it's going to be on our streaming service. Pay us, I think, £20, and you'll be able to watch it on there.
Wow.
I think it's £30 actually. That's expensive.
That's expensive. That is
And personally, I know a lot of people are like excited about like being able to just watch, the biggest movies in your house.
expensive.
But I really like the cinema experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that the cinema experience is just different. You have to, the full-on theater atmosphere, the chairs are more comfortable. It's definitely, and you have the atmosphere of the people around you. I don't, you definitely, because you're a Marvel fan as well. You definitely remember, especially for Endgame, when there's a big battle going on, and yeah,
Oh,
like everyone's just
yeah.
fully engrossed in it, and you're hearing people's reactions, and you feed off of it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think I really like the cinema experience. I like, as you said, so like the atmosphere, experiencing something with other people, even though you'd actually have to talk to them. It's just like
Hmm.
it's sort of a communal experience, I guess,
Yeah,
that I'm a big
yeah.
fan of.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah, we'll see how these sort of cinema experiences adapt, I guess.
yeah. We will.
So
Yeah.
back to the
The
bench.
bench.
We really went on like a 10-minute tangent because of that, but it's a good name. I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit. Okay, so this story is again about the Bank of England. The Bank of England is expected to finance the extra government spending that's been put in place due to the coronavirus, using a government bank account known as the Ways and Means Facility. So normally this is capped at £370 million, but the account has been raised to a near unlimited number due to great uncertainty as to the many schemes that the government's been put in place and how long the coronavirus crisis is going to go on for, and ultimately how much it's going to cost. So, in layman's terms, this is effectively an overdraft that the government can use to support day to day spending. And one of the last times that they used this was the 2008 economic crisis, in which they went into it £20 billion. Analysts have reported that the spending of this account in 2020 could reach upwards of 200 billion, which just shows you the
Wow.
scale. However, the Treasury has said that this form of monetary financing from the government would be temporary and short term, but we'll see how that goes. The bank expects the government to pay all the money back by the end of the year.
Wow.
However, some, including a Bank of England governor, are worried that it will become a permanent form of monetary financing.
That's that's quite worrying that they expect the money to be paid back by the end of the year. This year, 2020?
This 2020? Yeah, apparently so.
Wow, that's well, I've got news for you. You ain't seeing that money for a good amount of years.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
no, but I would say all in all, it's good that the Bank of England is, willing to support the country, especially in a time like this. So it's good that they've put this year near unlimited number because they everyone realizes that we've never faced something like this, before. So we don't even know what we're facing. But 200 billion, that's how much they expect us to go into it.
Yeah, exactly. Because, no one really knows. Like, I think there are lots of sort of schemes that the government is sort of employing during this time. There's the job retention scheme. There's the scheme for like smaller businesses. There's the scheme for like bigger businesses. The scheme for smaller businesses has been given over £450 million.
Okay.
The job retention scheme has estimated to cost £10 billion for every month for every 3 million people using it. Now the government expects over 9 million people to be furloughed, which means 30 billion a month on the job retention scheme, which naturally, if this goes on for like a year, it's going to cost the government quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely. The only it's going to be interesting to see how we come out of the other side of this because it's all well and good that there's being extra money being pumped to stay afloat, but you have to think at the other side of this, there's going to be a real tightening of the purse strings, as they say.
Yeah,
With whether that's taxes being increased or yeah, taxes being increased or whatever else that's gonna happen or benefits being cut. I don't know. It's scary to think
yeah, the
to even
government's
think about.
gonna have to make money some way. I just really
Ultra,
this
ultra.
is sorry. Go ahead.
So no, I was just gonna say ultra austerity or
I hope
whatever.
not.
Austerity on another level.
I really hope not.
I hope not too, but but yeah, carry on. I interrupted
Yeah,
you.
no, I was just gonna say that this was a pretty old story that I collected, I think, late April. But I just really wanted to throw
All
this
right.
into at least the bench because I felt like there are a lot of people who didn't actually know sort of how the government was getting all this money. So I just felt it was important for us to, sort of explain that and discuss it as best as we
Definitely.
can, so you can increase your commercial awareness. It's a new tagline for the show.
Definitely. I like it. I like it.
But yeah, so
But yeah.
last story on the bench
Mm,
sort of goes back to the coronavirus winners in quotes that we were talking about.
mm,
Video conferencing apps win as social distancing leads to a rise in download. Apps like Zoom, House Party, and Google Hangouts have all seen a significant rise in downloads and usage as the social distancing requirement has left people unable to talk in real life. There's this new app called House Party that has grown substantially from like having 130,000 downloads within a week to over 2 million in one
mm-hmm.
week. Zoom has also exploded to similar metrics to such an extent that the SEC, this is a funny story, the SEC was required to step in and clear the worst case of mistaken identity on Wall Street, as investors were mistakenly investing in Zoom technologies, not Zoom, the conference app. The shares of Zoom video communications has doubled since the beginning of the year to $40.3 billion.
Wow. You know what? One thing I add on to that also, this ain't just for now. Like we we're seeing this boom when it comes to these video conferencing apps and these ways of communicating with your teams virtually. This is not just a now thing. Even after the coronavirus, things are going to change. So, there are companies that they're doing surveys to ask people after this, how many days can you see yourself, coming into the office? And people are saying, oh, I only want to be there 2 or 3 days because I can work from
Yeah,
home. So, you think about that, stepping away from this, people are going to be using those, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx. They're going to be using it far more than they were before, and they're going to be conducting way more business virtually than they were before. So it looks like good times. These winners are going to be having good times for the next couple of years. Um, yeah. So that's all I can say in terms of that. It's going to be a good time for those companies for the near
yeah,
future.
no, I think you're right. I think I don't know many people who don't like working from home. Like I think like there are people who are like, oh yeah, I don't really mind going into the office. You get to like see your work, your fellow colleagues, and you get to like sort of discuss your work properly, and it can like make you more productive. But I think that
Hmm.
increasingly you can just communicate through things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all these sort of Skype, all these types of apps that
Exactly.
sort of don't really necessitate the need to be in the same room. And then in that case,
Hmm.
why would a company bother, paying the rent for an office, which is usually like one of the biggest expenses, especially for small businesses, if everyone can just
Exactly.
work from
Yeah, for
home?
small businesses. Yeah, it's going to be such a game changer for them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be weird. But yeah, I just really wanted to the Zoom technology story. I just found that hilarious when I read it.
Wait, so you said this SEC stepped in. How did they resolve it? Did they kind of like, guys, I'm gonna have to take this money away from you now. It wasn't really meant for you, and they just like give it to the right people. Is it as simple as that, do you think? Or
Zoom Technologies still got to keep all the money that they got. I think. Yeah, because
really?
at a certain point, right, if you're investing like large amounts of money, you should do your research and you should know what
That's very
what it's
true.
actually listed as on the stock market. You know.
Very, very true. Yeah, you're
So
right.
it's
That's
like
true.
how we talk about in like contract and commercial law, buyer beware.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to do your own
Hmm.
research. So like it wasn't like,
Yeah.
this company was set up as soon as they saw Zoom explode and they like took the name. Like this company's existed for a while. So
Hmm. Yeah. Very
yeah,
true.
but we have nothing else to say on that story. We're coming to the end of episode 7 of Commercial Minds. We want
Yeah.
to thank you all for joining us. We hope
Thank
you
you all.
enjoyed. We hope that this episode increased your commercial awareness, which is our
Hmm.
goal every episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that YouTuber stuff. Follow us on Twitter at C Minds Podcast, where
Hmm.
throughout the week we'll be sharing like just stories where you guys can like discuss it. Things to just
Yeah.
keep you again commercially aware. Yeah, do you have anything else to say, Modou?
No, nothing. Can't really overstate the importance of you guys just sharing this the podcast, help others out there that may need this information as well to get clued in and to grow their commercial awareness as well. So as ever, we appreciate your listenership and we appreciate you interacting with us. So yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. And until next time.
Stay commercially aware. All right. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.